justify the reason why this time we're not just being like a sweaty guy there. So anyways, first of all, I want to give a big round of applause to you guys. Everybody worked really hard here today. Thanks again for coaching that class up. It was fun. Other than that, me and Runny are not friends. We don't get along. I've accepted this in my life, and I plan to never change this unless some reason that changes it. But I also want to give you guys a big congratulations, not only for coming out here and working really hard on early Saturday morning. I know I didn't like when the alarm clock went off this morning, but also for staying for this class, because the information you get here is really going to help you take your health and or your performance to the next level. We know less than 5% of the people take an active part in improving their health. And that takes away from people that just say go to the gym or say they eat healthy, but actually invest their time, effort, and money into being healthy. So just that alone is telling me that people here really do care about their health, their performance, and how well their body can really adapt and be. So we got some people here, I can look around the room, and I know we got some people that are really into health, really into performance, and those are really a lot of the same things. High performance, whether it be, doing a really good job at the WOD, today's WOD, or whether it's just being a great parent or being a good teacher or whatever it is you do in your life, they're all along the same continuum and they all follow the same principles. So who here has ever looked into something related to health and been confused? Even the coaches. Has anyone not been? Right? You can open up a men's health, a women's health magazine, and on this page it says one thing, on this page it says something else. They're completely contradicting themselves in the same magazine, and guess what? They're probably both wrong. Right? You type in a Google search, and who knows what you're going to find, right? You're going to find the things that people are putting money into come up, right? So that might be that same magazine article you just read that didn't make any real sense because it contradicted everything on the other side, right? It might be something where you're trying to find a natural health solution. The only things popping up are things by the pharmaceutical industries because they have so much money, they can make sure no matter what word you pop in, their stuff pops up. So we have this world that is completely confusing. Everybody in this planet, or at least in our society, tends to be going one of two different ways. They are doing everything they can to optimize their health. They're coming to Cross Fit classes. They're eating well. They're sleeping well. They're doing all these things. Or they're buying into all the mass media garbage and they're just ruining themselves and, to be honest, the generations of their kids to come. And I've kind of taken on my adult life to really make sure we clear this up. My biggest health value in any way, shape, or form is for people to make informed decisions about their health. As much as I'm empathetic to people that make poor health decisions and what happens from that, I don't care. That's your life. It's not my job to tell you what to do. My job as a doctor or as a health advocate or for whatever rationale or language you want to use is to make sure you are making a truly informed decision about your health. And the way our world is set up, whether it be again through those men's health magazines, whether it's through a Google search, whether it's through commercials on TV and the radio, is not telling us the truth. We are being lied to. We are basically being told that our bodies cannot do it. That without these potions and lotions and gizmos, we can't be healthy. And a class like this shows us that all you have to do is follow those proper health principles, and guess what's going to happen? You're going to be as healthy as you can be, period. There's no exception to this rule. The human body is the most miraculous, it's called a machine that has ever been existed. It starts from 2 half cells and grows into this thing that can process the toxins in our hair. Get through all the toxic thoughts we think on a daily basis. Eat all that garbage that's out in our society and still do pretty good. Imagine if we gave it the things it needed. Imagine if we followed the principles of what actual health would be. So what I've done is I've developed a program called BluePrint Health. BluePrint Health is a program that looks at what the requirements of health are. Okay? Because what is health? Does anybody, who wants to give me a guess of what they think health is?
Well, I think for me, health is, it's free from illness and injury.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think for me, this is most important. Illness.
So basically some version of feeling.
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody else want to give me one more guess on this?
Certain level of energy.
Actually, I really like that. I like that answer. I'm going to tweak a little bit of that. The problem is that a lot of people look at just at how they feel. So I'm going to give you a story about, very quick story that hits my life personally. about 3 years ago now, I was sitting in my parents' living room joking around with my family. My parents don't eat well, they don't really exercise, they do all those things, they don't listen to me at all. Who listens to their kids, right? And he was talking about how he feels good. That's great. And I jokingly said back to him, like, you can't be healthy. You eat like this, you do this, like, and I just went on a laundry list. And it was all in good fun. But 2 weeks later, I was asleep on a Saturday morning. I was actually at about 10:30 when this class was starting. And I got a call that they were on the way to the hospital. My dad was having a heart attack. Okay? He felt good. He felt he looked good enough that he didn't care about losing any weight. His blood pressure, his cholesterol, his blood sugars, whatever other tests his medical doctor always ran were all normal or low. But he wasn't living by these principles of health. He wasn't sleeping well. He wasn't eating well. Actually, his mindset, his stress management was actually pretty good. That's one thing that's probably saved him over the years. He lived in a house with a 2-pack-a-day smoker in the house. Right? Like all these things, he wasn't living. There was no way he could be healthy. No matter how good he felt, no matter how good he looked, no matter any of those things. By definition, he was not doing things that were healthy. So what I have done is I've broken down what it takes to be healthy in the BluePrint Health. And there are 5 components I've measured it down to. Okay? And that's what the 4 components are. So I'm going to give you the kind of general language and then start getting into what they are. So it's really nutrition, your exercise and movement, your mindset, your rest, and your body's aligned. If all those things are working well, you will be as healthy as you can be every single time. There is absolutely no exception to this rule. All right? So I'm going to start getting into what's the first one you guys have there? BluePrint Move, I believe, right? So BluePrint Move is really your exercise and movement. I specifically call it move, not exercise. Because it's about your overall movement. You have 3 requirements of movement. And this is what I love about CrossFit when it's done right, because if you go onto Google or YouTube, you can find a lot of CrossFit being done wrong. I think everybody can agree with that. It unfortunately gets a bad rap. But if you look at what I've heard referred to as orthodox CrossFit or real CrossFit, it really has 3 components. Mobility, strength, and working fast or hard. Now, so the way I work it is strong, mobile, and fast. If you are strong, mobile, and fast, you are going to fulfill your body's requirements for movement. Period. Now, here's the really cool thing. I don't care how you get it. In here, obviously, we have a group of people that like exercise, that like putting ourselves through whatever this was today, right? We like that. That's cool. But if you want to go work on a farm and carry hay bales, go right ahead. If you want to just take 2 grocery bags instead of 1 for your thing, go right ahead. If you want to just take your grandkid and do body weight squats, hold them out here, and as they grow and they get stronger, you get stronger, go right ahead. I don't really care how you fulfill any of these requirements, and that principle holds true. And that's what's so strong about the program I've put together, is that we give you the requirements. There are specific requirements, and if you follow them, fulfill them however you want. That's your job. It's like a strategy, right? You have a goal and an objective, right? I don't like when we did the clean and jerks here today. We could have done them in groups of 5. You could have done them in groups of 10. You could have done 1-1. You could have done all of yours at once, all of yours at once. The goal was to get through at the first round 40 clean and jerks for your team. Whatever way you want to do it, who cares? It doesn't really matter when we're talking about health. Now, if you're trying to go win the CrossFit Games, there's probably the best strategy to do that. But that's the reality. Strength is what gives us longevity and the ability to be healthy and well throughout our entire life. Right? If we look at the elderly, what are they able to do? Right? And I'm going to be very stereotypical, but they're able to walk through the mall all day long, right? You can see them shuffling. They may not be moving fast, but they're moving. They're able to do it. But that same person that was at their mall walking group in the morning literally had their hips shatter under their weight from trying to stand up off the toilet. Right? Because they were so weak and they weren't strong enough to do the things they need to do. Strength is what gives us the ability to maintain independence and wellness for our life. Mobile. Being mobile is essential. Who here knows what the 2 main things that relate to the longevity of your life, the only 2 things that have ever been proven and shown in research to make people live the longest? Do you know what they are? One of them is movement. Daily, regular movement. Not being sedentary. The second actually relates to another part, and it's the way you apply your mind thinks, a positive outlook. Those are the only 2 things. Everything else just talks about the quality of your life along the way. But those are the only 2 things that actually allow you to live as long as you can. And then we got to be fast. Now the fast can mean one of two things in different ways. It means working at a fast pace. And again, if we talk about those, some of those elderly people, that is fast for them. That's okay. Right? It might be just going for a power walk or having your dog drag you around the block for some people. That's okay too. But it means we have to get our heart rate up fast and we have to move fast. Those are the only requirements. As long as you fulfill those on most or all days, you're going to be as healthy as you can. It's really that simple. And then you just find the activities you enjoy or the goals you like to achieve or whatever it is you want to do to fulfill those. And it's that simple. All right? Do you guys understand that whole idea between strategies and requirements? Like, you know, you have a goal, and however you fulfill it doesn't matter. And we're going to use that principle throughout the way. Make sense? Awesome. Okay. So the next one on the list there is BluePrint Recover. All right? BluePrint Recover is about how your body recovers. So who here's ever heard of overtraining? Okay, I'm going to tell you something. That is a myth. There is no such thing as overtraining. Anyone going to disagree with me?
I will.
All right.
Under recovery.
There you go. There's such thing as under recovery. No such thing as overtraining. Your body will adapt. As long as you recover enough, you can do as much work as you can. So it's about the recovery, not overdoing it. Does that make sense? Do you guys get that difference? Does that make a little more sense there?
I understand.
Yeah.
The message is there.
Yeah. So you can overtrain. There's a limit to what you can do, right? Because if you need, at one point you're going to need more recovery than there. Like, let's say you need 12 hours of recovery. You can't do 13 hours of work in a day. The math just doesn't work, right? So I guess you can make an argument in there. But the reality is it's about how you recover. And this is probably, in our society, the most undervalued aspect. We don't sleep enough, we don't sleep long enough, we don't sleep with a better quality, we don't rest and relax, our phones are going all the time. And I'm just as guilty as anybody else, but we need to start moving away. There's three requirements. You need to rest, you need to relax, and you need to sleep. Rest, relax, and sleep. And they all are a little bit different. Sleeping, that makes sense, right? Everybody knows we need to get a little bit more sleep, but we need to rest and recover along the way. Right? So rest is just chilling out, whatever it takes for you. It might be reading a book, it might be watching Game of Thrones on the couch, it might be going for a walk at the beach, whatever it is you like to do. You need to shut. Sorry?
Less burpees.
Less burpees, absolutely. You have to talk to the crowd on this side of that one. But yeah, no, it doesn't matter how you do it. What matters is you need to shut your body down and let it recover at times. Right? That's your rest. Recover is like the next level. That's really doing things that you enjoy, right? So that's, again, they cross over a lot. And then making sure we get the quality of sleep. Making sure our body's aligned while we sleep, okay? Because all these things all come down to how your body processes stress. Who has ever heard about how stress kills? Right? Has anybody not heard how stress kills? Right? The problem is when we don't follow these principles, those stresses build up. Our body doesn't know the difference between the stress of a saber-tooth tiger jumping out at us and being worried about a project at work, being worried about our kids being out late, being worried about X, Y, and Z. It doesn't matter. The body doesn't know the difference. It just knows stress. And what happens when we get stressed is we get into a stress posture. Right? So we start getting in here. And when we're in here, our body's tense and our muscles are all up in here. And it puts us into this forward posture. Everything kind of gets out of whack. And when you're in here, how well can you sleep? Right? Who's ever tried to sleep when their shoulders are up at their ears? You just can't do it because your body's basically saying, I'm waiting for the saber-toothed tiger to jump out at me. I don't know if I should go to sleep because then it can eat me. I've had a chance if I'm awake and ready to fight. Right? And that stress response is really what we're trying to do with all the components of BluePrint Health. When we follow the principles, our stress levels are where they're supposed to be. When we don't, they're not. So again, that rest and recovery is just essential. We need to make sure we keep doing it, and we keep doing it well. And we can do a whole talk on each of these components, so we are just kind of doing an overview of everything. Next one we have down there. All right, BluePrint Fuel. So this is our eating. So we're in a CrossFit gym, so I know one of the big fads in CrossFit is like the paleo and primal type eating styles. Is that how a lot of people in here really look at nutrition and things like that? This is what is close to optimal, or
Not strict.
not strict, no, okay. But like that direction, right? Like really just eating whole foods. And I'm actually really on board with those processes and programs, but I'm going to tweak why I can eat I'm not a fan of paleo because I think we should eat like our ancestors did, because if that was the case, we should all be sleeping in caves and wearing loincloths. And while that might be fun for a Halloween party, that's not really how we want to live our life. I don't think my patients would really enjoy if they came into the office and I was dressed like that. It would just be weird and awkward.
Maybe they would.
Maybe they would. I have a very small, very specific line of patients. I don't think business is over, but hey, it is what it is, right? So what we want to do is, because a Paleolithic diet or a similar one like that fulfills our nutritional requirements. And our nutritional requirements are very simple. Protein, fat, and microbes. Protein, fat, and microbes. If we get the right proteins, the right fats, and the right microbes mean micronutrients, which are your vitamins, minerals, fiber, water, I can't group them all in there. If we get those right, and we get the right everything, your body is going to optimize and be perfect from a fuel point of view every time. There's going to be individual differences. You might not process this food as well as somebody else. This person might not process this or that. And the reality is, if we fulfill those requirements, again, we're going to be eating as well. Our body's going to get everything it needs, period, every single time. And then you just have to figure out the nuances and the details that work for you. Right? So if you're choosing to be a vegetarian or a vegan, you can still fulfill those requirements. You just have to be very specific. If you want to be a pure carnivore, you can find a way to fulfill those requirements as long as you're fulfilling them. Now you're going to notice in there is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. If we don't eat any carbohydrates, right, we're going to make them from the proteins and fats. Now again, this is for looking at optimal health. When we start getting into high performance, there might be a requirement for your performance to need more. But you still want to start getting them through sources that provide the right protein, fats, and micronutrients. Okay? One of the other things you want to do is really start asking the right question about food. Who's ever heard or seen something in the news or on TV or talking to a friend or a coach or whoever it is, and you hear about a food that's not good for you? So the question everybody asks is, why? What's wrong with X? Right? Isn't that what everybody asks? Why can't I eat bread? Why can't I eat rice or pasta or chicken nuggets for that matter, right? We're asking the wrong question, right? Because when you ask what's wrong with it, you start, this has this or that, we're asking the wrong question. What we need to start asking is, what is right about that food? What nutritional requirements is that fulfilling, right? So when we look at something like bread, that's probably the most demonized food in our society right now, it doesn't fulfill any of it. It doesn't really have any protein. It doesn't really have any fat. The vitamins in it are all enriched, which means you can take a multivitamin and get the same thing. So really, we're not getting any of that, right? So we've got to start asking the right question, and then we've got to be reasonable about it. Because a Big Mac has lettuce on it, right? So you could make an argument that it has vegetables on it, so it's good for you. No, let's be realistic, right? And in most people, if we eat well and we follow those principles and only provide foods that give us nutrients, a minimum of 80% of the time, the rest of the body will work through the rest of that. All those things, because again, when we eat those poor foods, when we don't sleep right, when we don't move right, our body gets into a stressed position, and that starts getting us in here. And this is exaggerated, but that's where we start getting. When we're in here, you start having health problems. All right, next one in there is BluePrint love. So this is the mindset. You gotta love yourself, you gotta love others, and you gotta love life. These are choices you have to make if you want to optimize your health. You are the only person you are going to spend every second of every day with. There's nobody else. It does not matter. Every second of every day you have to spend with yourself. You sure as hell better love yourself. Right? It doesn't mean you have to like everything you've done, or it doesn't mean you don't want to improve from where you're at. But if you don't love yourself, you can't move on. If you don't have a positive mental attitude about yourself, if you don't decide to have a purpose and decide to be happy on a daily basis, you cannot be healthy. Just no ifs, ands, or buts. All right? You have to love others. Now, I would be very specific, and I'm going to do it with a story. When I was a little kid, and I was being a little brat, as we all were, let's say I was like 6 years old, and I was being a little monster, and I'd beat my mom do something like, say, I get a treat, or send me to my room, or whatever the case would be. And I'd throw a hissy fit in there, hey, you don't love me! right? And I swear to God, every single time I said that to her, she would stop dead in her tracks. I mean, when she was about to throw us through a wall, she would stop dead in her tracks, stares dead in the eye, and goes, I will always love you. I just don't like you right now. Right? You don't have to like everybody. But as a human, as a person, you need to choose to love other people. You have to be around people. We are animals that are designed to be in groups. We are not designed to live on our own. There are animals that do that and they thrive that way. Those are not our requirements as human beings. Right? To the point where who here has ever gone through university and like a first-year psychology course? Anybody? Yeah. So you may have heard this study. This was a study they did way back in the 70s, and it was this heartbreaking study they did with these little baby monkeys. They took these little baby monkeys and they took them from their moms, which is heartbreaking. They put half of them in a cage with a stuffed animal that had like basically like milk in the thing, and they cuddle up to it, hug up to this little stuffed animal and took the milk, and everybody was happy. They took the monkeys, put them back in with the other monkeys, and everybody was happy. Then they took the other half of the monkeys and put them in the same cage, same thing, except they took all the cuddliness off. It was just the shape of a mom, and it got all its nutrients. Those monkeys literally could not go back into society. They lost the ability to interact with people. We are a group that needs to be with a group. Like, as humans, we have to be with people. So if we start being annoyed by everybody, if we start just hating people because we have to talk to annoying people on the phone all day, or we have to sit in our hour-long commute on a GO train like this, or on the highway, don't get me wrong, I don't like sitting on traffic on the highway, but you've got to choose to love everybody, and just not be around people you don't love.
Well, that's why we're here.
Yeah, exactly. And CrossFit actually is a great example of that. You know, I came in here, it's my first time in here. I met Winnie and Mike and Tammy before, but like I didn't really know anybody, and everybody's in here with high-five in there, you know.
Awesome.
You know, everyone's pushing everyone. It was great, it was fun. You know, this is what we're designed to do. It doesn't mean you don't have to have your hermit time. You're allowed that as well. But this is what we got to look at as a whole. Okay? And then lastly, you have to choose to love life. Right? You only get one, you better love it. Right? You gotta love it along the way. So when we look at, remember we talked earlier, the number one thing that dictates how long you're gonna live is moving and being active. The second is waking up every day with a purpose. And that's the way you love life. And it doesn't matter what your purpose is. My purpose is to make sure every single human I have to interact with has the ability to make an informed decision about their health and their family's health. That's my purpose in life. I get up every day and go do that. And I love it. It energizes me. A long, drawn-out day energizes me. It's great. It's amazing. Right? Some people, it might be to just be a great mom. Not just. That is not just. Well, let me make sure I said that very clearly. It might simply be to be a great mom to their kids. It might be to run a big business. It might be to run a great CrossFit gym. It doesn't matter what your purpose is, but you gotta wake up every single day choosing to go after it. Okay? So even if you're not doing it, you should be working at it. So if you go on vacation, and some people go on vacation, they stress out about all these other things, what you should be saying is, this is my way to recharge, so when I get back to work, I can go kick ass. Right? This is the way we need to look at all these things. Right? So again, we gotta love ourselves, we gotta love others, we gotta love life. Period. Again, if we want to optimize our health, and by health that means whether it's performance, whether it's how you feel, whatever it is, you have to do these things. The last one is called BluePrint Align, and this is making sure that your body structure is working the way it is. So what I want everybody to do is I want everyone to sit up straight. Okay? I'm just going to use this as a demonstration of how important our body's alignment is. Alright? So everybody stand up straight. Now what I want you to do is slouch forward. It doesn't have to be crazy, but enough that it's kind of a normal. Now what I want you to do is take as deep of a breath as you can. Without standing up straight. That's how you cheat back there. Right in here. Okay? Now what I want you to do is stand up straight. Or sit up straight. Now take a deep breath. How much more air are you able to get into? Right? So, just by sitting at a computer like this and being like this all day, just as a simple mechanics, can we oxygenate our body as well as it's supposed to be? No. How hard was it to take that deep breath the first time compared to the second time? A lot harder. Anyone disagree with that? So how much harder do you think it was for your heart to beat? How much harder was it for your liver to process toxins? How much was it for your kidneys to process water and stuff? These aren't things you can feel. Okay? That's one part of what happens when we are out of alignment. And as a chiropractor, which is what I am, we know that those are the things that start happening. I want you all to take your hand like this, okay? So these are what the curves in your spine are supposed to be like. Just a nice curve, okay? Let's use the neck. Now what happens is, we're going to pretend that the skin of your hand is your spinal cord. Now we know that if we stretch your spinal cord just a tiny little bit, it'll decrease the function of all those nerves, all those signals that come from your brain up to your body by 60 to 70%. Okay? So as soon as you start feeling tension. So what happens as we sit at a desk like this is this happens. Okay? So what I want you to do is, does anyone feel any stress in their hand right now? I want you to take your other hand and start straightening out your hand. At one point, you're going to start feeling stress and tension in the palm of your hand, right? Some of you that have really good mobility, where you don't be able to get really far, some of that same stress and tension that you have when you're sitting here like this. Remember we talked about that flex forward posture from stress? So you eat poorly, it gets you in here, and it causes misalignments in the spine, which puts stress on that spinal cord. Okay? And then, because you're in here, your body gets more stressed in. And you just keep perpetuating this problem, and it causes the misalignments in the spine. Chiropractic, we call those vertebral subluxation. And what happens is a whole lack of problems. The first is those mechanical problems, that breathing, that actual thing. We know people that have what's called a kyphotic posture. They live 7 years less than everything else being corrected for than people that have been postured. 7 to 12 years. That is the result of having those misalignments in your spine and poor posture. It's really that big. So first of all, it has that huge mechanical stress on the body. It puts stress on the nerves that come out of the body. It puts stress on the spinal cord. That spinal cord communicates everything. It tells your heart to beat, tells your muscles to move. When there's stress on that system, even a tiny little bit, it limits your body's ability to be healthy and well. If those misalignments cause a irritation to the joint or the muscles, then you get pain. That's when you get neck pain, headaches, low back pain. That's just the tip of the iceberg. That's only about 10% of the cases. We know when you have misalignments in the body, it starts having an effect on your health. And those stresses can start as early as the birth process. So if we look at a natural, normal birth in our society, 80 to 90% of those births cause spine and spinal cord injuries in the newborn babies. That's without suction, that's without forceps, that's without a C-section. That is what is now considered a normal birth. 80 to 90% of them. So from the time you're born to the time you die, we're bombarding our body in these stresses. And when you have those stresses in your spine from misalignments, it actually changes the brain chemistry like any other stressor. So again, we're sitting at our desk, we're stressed out because we haven't slept, we're eating garbage food, we're not exercising to meet the deadline, and we're just perpetuating this problem, and we're building and building and building poor health in our body. And what we need to do is start reversing that process. And we can reverse it in any of those 5 ways, right? So we can start thinking better, right? We can start choosing to love our life. We can start eating better, start making processes towards that. Everybody here is moving pretty well, because I know this gym does a great job of keeping you on track. But, let's say you come in here 3 days a week for an hour. What are you doing with, what is that, the other 164, 165 hours a week? Right? What are you doing in that time? When was the last time you made sure you had your spine checked for subluxation or misalignments? You look at what it could be doing. When was the last time you thought about your breathing when you were sitting at your desk at work or doing whatever you do with your life? All right? So those are the 5 areas that we need to maximize. If we want to maximize our health, period. There's no exceptions to this. Now, with the exception of a couple minor genetic things, there are no exceptions to these principles. They are principles like gravity, right? Whether you believe in gravity or you buy into gravity, if I take this water bottle and I drop it, it's going to fall. Every single time, there's no exception to this. Just like there is no exception to the requirement for protein, fat, and micronutrients. There's no exception to the principle of needing to have a clear brain-body connection. There's no exception to needing sleep. You can't change these principles no matter how much you want to change them. And it's okay if you're not fulfilling them, right? If you have a newborn baby and they're getting up every hour and a half, 2 hours because they need to feed and nurse, then you've made a choice, and that's okay, but you have to understand what it is. And in those cases, you need to maximize the other aspects of our health. right? So the idea of working towards health and building health is really about maximizing as much as you can under everything, accepting what it is you're not doing, and one of two things: accept it and work harder at the other areas, because that's all you can do at the moment, or put together a plan to start improving. All right. That is about what I have to say here today. All right. Questions, comments, concerns? Yeah.
I'm just like, I love the 5 points.
Yeah.
I find that some people, or even myself, like, I strive and I'm good at some of them, but like, or like I feel like, for example, I'm very active, for example, for one of them, but yet my recovery means a lot.
Right.
So it's like, if they're not all like balanced,
Right.
like obviously like if one's better than the other, it's like they all affect each other, right?
Absolutely.
Like for example, you can't be so good at one, but then yet lack in a lot of the other ones,
Right, yeah, you're going to have a limitation. Now, the reality is you can only do so much. Right? You can't, the reality of trying to be perfect on every single one of them, let's be honest, that's impossible. You want to be really good at all of them, and then maximize them other ways. So as long as you are kind of hitting and you got to figure, there's a lot of, one of the negatives of the program is it's not a black and white, A equals B. I don't, like when I do nutrition programming, I don't hand you a meal plan and say this is what you should eat. That's not going to help anybody in the long run, right? But the idea is you need to start working on it. You got to figure out where your minimum threshold is to hit the results you want. Because if, let's say, recovery performance, right? If you're being active, by not getting that recovery, you're just not going to be able to perform. Like you're not going to hit your Fran time or whatever it is, right? So you've got to balance these things out. You might be in a situation where you pull back an hour of training a day, and add an hour of sleep, and your performance is going to go up. And you got to try to balance those out, and you got to start trying to maximize other aspects. So if, let's say, like when I was in school, I had, just based on the situation, I was basically having to work a quasi full-time job while being in school. It was bad, and I was probably averaging 6 days a week, about 4 hours sleep a night. I made that choice because that was the only way I could get through everything was to do that. I understood what the negatives were. I made an informed decision that I was going to do this for this time period. That's what I had to do to fulfill my life purpose. And I understood there was a health consequence and all these different things, but you maximize what you can. So when I didn't have the time to make sure I was getting enough sleep, for example, I was making sure I was getting my spine and nervous system checked and adjusted as necessary more often than I would now, and I'm able to get a lot more sleep. So you maximize the ones you can given the situation. So if you're in a situation where you're not able to sleep as much as you like, or you're choosing not to, then you've got to make your decisions. You got to be extra good on your nutrition. You got to be extra good on the other aspects of your recovery. You've got to be extra good in making sure your spine's in alignment. You got to and take all of them into consideration. Because even though we break them into 5 components, it's how they all work together. And you're better off as a general rule doing 80% well at all of them than 100, 100, 20, 20, or whatever way it breaks down. Does that make sense? And kind of give you some direction on that? Yeah? Any other questions, people?
I mean, what about the mindset?
Yeah.
We exercise still we are thoughts are always negative. Is that affect our
Absolutely. So that negative thought process falls underneath the BluePrint love category. And it's really going to fall into some version of not loving yourself, not loving others, or not loving your life. And when you have those negative things, you've got to work out, right? Our evolution is designed us to pick out negatives because negatives are a threat. If you're walking through the forest and everything's good and you see one little thing that can ruin it, you need to be able to find that. That's evolutionarily normal. That doesn't need to apply to every aspect of our life. I remember when I was in chiropractic school and exam time was stressful. I had people that wouldn't sleep, not because they weren't going to bed because they're studying, no, because they just couldn't shut off their brain when they would sleep. And the reality is you got to decide, you got to be productive. You know, one of the things I've always done is looked at when you're, because that's usually going to be something you're going, something's going to go wrong, or something is going wrong, I can't fix it. And what I find is beneficial is to look at what's the realistic worst case scenario. The key being the realistic worst case scenario. And when you start breaking that down and you really ask, what could happen if this thing I'm worried about goes wrong? Things end up not that bad. And that's the absolute worst, because we always get that you know, let's say you're worried about something at the gym, your enrollment's down, you don't know how you're going to pay your bills. You start going, what this has, you know, the worst thing that's going to happen is you sell business. Like I'm just using it as an example. And you move on and you find another thing to put your passions into. If that's the absolute worst thing that could happen, you can put a plan together to make that not happen and worry about it. Staying awake at night, for example, not being able to sleep because you can't shut your brain off, is going to interfere with your mindset, the BluePrint love. It's going to interfere with your rest and recovery, BluePrint recover. It's going to affect your overall stress response, which is now going to start affecting your alignment. And you're going to start not being able to think well, right? And you're going to be too tired to train well. And then because you're tired, you're going to eat crappy food. And then these things all start cycling and going down. So you've got to just start working at it. And you know, doing a 40-minute talk here on everything doesn't really give us the tools to be able to work on that. But the short answer is you got to fix it. You got to work at fixing it. And it's easier said than done. Don't get me wrong. There's great books out there. A great book on that whole principle is a book called Mindset. And it just really breaks down how people look at things and how they think of things so that you can get into a situation where you don't let that happen or minimize how much that does happen. But I agree with you, it's a big problem. Yeah, we're our own worst enemies in our brains, absolutely. All right, so there's one thing down at the bottom of all those pages. It's the only part I really think you should have to write down. Everything else is your own information. What is the number one commitment you're going to make in order to move yourself closer to the awesome life you deserve? Basically, out of all the information you learned here today, I feel like everybody should take away at least one, you can put as many down as you want, things you're going to be able to start working towards to get better at what you're going to do. It might be something in your nutrition. It might be to book a new patient exam in my office. It might be to get to more CrossFit classes. It might be to get to less CrossFit classes, depending on how it works with everything else, right? Hey, would you rather people come in here 4 days a week and just kill it than 6 days a week and do anything else? Yeah, exactly. Right, so whatever it needs to be. And then once I'm going to give you a couple seconds to do that. When that's done, I actually have a feedback form on the back that I would like, because I want to make these presentations and this information as effective for as many people as you want. It just gives me a little bit of information so I can tweak the discussion every time I go into a new group. And then the other thing that I always offer to a group when I go out and talk to them is that most people, the reality is, aren't getting their spine, their alignment checked on a regular basis, if ever at all. Normally in our office, it's $149 if you just come in and get your new patient exam. And we're offering it to everybody in here and for the next 2 weeks, anyone that comes into the club at no fees at all. So we're going to completely waive that. We're going to absorb all the costs associated with you guys coming into the office. And that includes whatever you do. We do advanced neurologic testing, where x-rays as necessary, consultation, and your report of findings where we review it all and let you guys know what's going on with your spine and nervous system. We do that at absolutely no charge for you. And we offer that to your entire family as well. So anybody in here, going to bring in your kids, if you have a little one that you don't know, like I said, 80–90% of births nowadays actually have enough trauma, which injuries to the spinal cord and spine itself, and that's not a way for a little guy or a little girl to start living their life. So. Sorry? No charge, zero charge.
Where are you located?
I'm in Pickering, right by the mall. So I'm really, if this is convenient for you, I can do that for you. I'm pretty sure if there wasn't hills and buildings, nobody would probably see my office. So yeah, I'm just down the street from the mall. Yeah. And so there's a spot there, you can fill it in. If you circle a time or whatever, we'll have my staff follow up with you on Monday, myself or my staff follow up with you on Monday and actually confirm a specific time for within the next 2 weeks. We'll offer this to all of Cross Fit Constellation for the next 2 weeks at least.
I do chiropractic every 2 years, and it's very important.
Sorry?
It's very important.
What is sorry?
It's a chiropractic.
Yeah.
It is very important.
It's absolutely important. Yeah, it's essential. It's a very missed piece of the puzzle.
It's a myth. They say that when you wrap align your body.
Yeah.
So some people say, oh, it's scary to do my weight. No, it's not.
No,
it's really take care of your alignment of your body.
Yeah, it's once the body develops that misalignment, it's a really good thing to protect it because of your spinal cord. And if you're running away from a saber-toothed tiger, alignment in your spine is the least of our concerns, let it be. But we don't live in that society anymore. We have the opportunity to maximize every aspect of our health and and not saying that just everybody in our country